Kerala, famous for its stunning landscapes and calm backwaters, is facing a serious crisis. In August 2024, relentless monsoon rains have led to severe flooding across the state, disturbing daily life and causing widespread damage, with landslides and thousands of people forced to leave their homes. This situation is truly challenging. Areas like Idduki, Ernakulam, Pattanamthitta have been hit the hardest. Rescue teams are working tirelessly to save lives. In this video, we will look into the cause of these floods, the solution government can make, and how the people of Kerala are staying strong during the difficult time. Stay with us to learn more about this unfolding situation.
Kerala is at the southernmost tip of India, and it's a pretty long state, but it is not so wide. So just about 40 to 60 kilometers wide, but then it is a long state. And the landscape is quite different from almost all the different states of India, basically because of the presence of the Western Ghats on the eastern side. Now, the reason why a mountain system which is on the eastern side is called a Western Ghats is because the Britishers gave the name, because they were looking at the whole landscape. And we have another mountain system on the eastern part called the Eastern Ghats. Now, Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats, if you compare, and they both come and meet at one point in Tamil Nadu. The difference is that the Western Ghats is a very strong mountain system. It has not fallen down, while the Eastern Ghats have completely damaged and the connectivity is gone. It is a series of mountains. It is not a single mountain system. But if you come to Western Ghats, it's a continuous mountain system with only just one gap at a place called Palakkad in Kerala. Uh, except for that, it is a continuous system. And this has been formed very, very long back. And that is why we have a huge biodiversity here compared to the Himalayas. Himalayas are basically a recent mountain system. It's a very young mountain system. It is still climbing up. So you can look at Himalayas as a pack of rubbles. So that ecosystem is completely changing. The Himalayas are rising up. But Western Ghats is a stabilized system for a long number of years. So that because of that, we have a large number of unique organisms over here, many endemic species. When I say endemic, it means that those species are seen only here. So not anywhere else in the world. So that the biodiversity is very unique. And we have the Western Ghats, and then it's a very steep slope, which has got a small midland, and then it comes to the seashore. And because of the seashore uh, and the steep climb, what happens is that whenever the rain happens, and we have an excellent monsoon system, because when the monsoon cloud comes, especially the southwest monsoon clouds, when they come, the Western Ghats stop it, and it invariably rains over here. And the rains and the clouds doesn't cross the Western Ghats. So that is why it is very dry on the other side. Especially Tamil Nadu, it has become very dry because all the rain holding clouds are stopped by the Western Ghats and we get intense rain. The average rainfall is more than 2000 millimeter a year, which is a very high rainfall compared to any other parts of India. And whatever water falls, it quickly drains down to the sea. There's a huge hydrological flow which is happening. And so that is regarding the setting of the state. Now, if you look at it from the ecological point of view, this particular type of system, starting from the seashore, going very fast up to the top of the Western Ghats, which is more than 2000 meters high. What happened was that we have a series of interesting ecosystems. You can see mangrove ecosystems on the seashore itself, a type of forest, which is very unique, which has got plants which can live in salt water. And this is a very unique property. Not, not many plants can tolerate salt. And these are species which are adapted to live in salt water. Now, if you just enter to the midland of Kerala, you can see a large number of sacred groves. Maybe Saurav would have seen the sacred groves, we call it Sarpakava in Kerala. And these are small formations of forest which holds tremendous biodiversity. Uh, it is much the unit area biodiversity is much more than the forest areas. Basically, because the forest area, the species can disperse to the large expanse of the forest. But a sacred grove, the species can live only there. So you have a large number of, starting from insects, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, bats. So it's a huge connectivity. And it is this biodiversity which controls the pest populations in the agriculture fields around. So that's the setting in the midland. And if you start climbing Western Ghats, you can have the first you will be seeing the plantation, the forest plantations. During the British rule, they were quite interested in the tree called a teak, scientifically called as Tectona grandis. And at that point of time, the ships were made of wood, and they found that the teak wood is extremely suited for making ships, basically because it is not very heavy, it is very durable, and most importantly, if you put a teak log in a seawater, it improves day by day. It gets curated. Uh, it becomes better. It doesn't disintegrate. So they were so fascinated by this tree, and they exploited the teak trees in the forest. But they found that that would not be enough. So they started agriculture. They cultivating teak. So it was tried in a place called Nilambur, which was successful, and they removed a large amount of natural forest and converted it into monoculture plantations of teak. Now, later on, we also introduced exotic species like eucalyptus, acacia, wattle. So these were all brought from other countries, and so we have a plantation of both native and exotic trees. So once you start climbing after the plantations, you will be coming to see the deciduous forest. And the deciduous forest are forests which sheds their leaves at one part of the year. They don't uh, uh, there are many trees which sheds leaves during November, December period. So you have the moist deciduous forest in most of the areas, and then uh, we have a bit of dry deciduous forest also on the other side of the Western Ghats in places like Munnar, but that's a very small area. Normally, it is a moist deciduous forest, and then you, after crossing the moist deciduous forest, you can see the semi-evergreen forest, which has got evergreen trees as well as the deciduous trees. And after the semi-evergreen forest, you can see the evergreen forest, which is green all the year. And each of these forest types have got their own unique flora and fauna. So that is the importance. And after you cross the uh, evergreen forest, you can see the Shola forest on the top of the along the crevices of the mountains. You can see Shola forest, which is a very unique ecosystem, which is a stunted trees you will be seeing there because of the high wind speed. And then if you cross the Shola forest, you can see the high elevation grasslands. And the top high elevation grasslands, that's the top of the Western Ghats. So all this type of, I'm just speaking about the major forest types. Within each of the major forest types, there are a large number of microhabitats and ecosystems that gives space for a large number of diverse organisms to live. So this is an ecological setting, and it would be very hard for you to see a place where you can see all these type of forest types in such a short area. If you catch a vehicle, you can see all these forest types in a span of maybe 2 to 3 hours. So there is no other place where you can see that. So the whole landscape is undulating. It is having small hillocks on the midlands and also huge mountains on the western Ghats. So this is the setting of Kerala. The first thing is the presence of estates, monoculture crops of tea, cardamom, etc. And recently, the government gave permission for converting 10% of the plantation area for other activities. Basically, because the argument was that the estates are running into a loss and there should be other economic activities happening over there. So there was a permission given for converting 10% of the plantation area into other activities, which brought in a large number of construction activities there for tourism purposes. A large number of resorts sprang up in that particular area. The second major impact is because of the road network. In a very hilly terrain, a large number of roads were made, and especially since now we have access to very big instruments like the JCB, things like that. The machinery used for constructing roads is quite popular. So you can make any type of transformation very fast. So you can make a road on a steep slope. You can just cut and make a road, making the whole mountain unstable. You have a slope, you have a road going in between. So you cut a L-shaped cut is made for the road. The entire soil and rocks on the top becomes unstable. There's nothing to hold it back. So that was one reason which created nearly 5,000 landslips or landslides in the year 2018. So when heavy rain falls, the water is held on the soil, the weight increases, and when it crosses a particular threshold, it just slides down. And if there is uh, a subsurface aquifer which gets filled with water, it also produces pressure. And if water is there, the pressure increases, and when it crosses a particular threshold, it pushes everything out and they slide out. So the transformation of the estates is one, roads is the next, and third comes the granite quarries. Uh, the construction activities have been very high in Kerala, and for that, the essential raw material was the rock. Uh, it was just rock for a long period of time, but we recently we had this technology of converting rock into sand, what we normally call as M sand. Now, earlier sand was taken from the rivers. Uh, Now there was a objection to taking sand from the river, and everybody was shifted over to the sand which is produced directly from the granites. We have huge machineries which can break down the rocks and make sand out of it. So this rock and sand happens to be the major construction material in Kerala, and for that, a large number of uh, quarries had to be started. So, so that is the third impact which has happened. And at many places, small scale encroachment also happened, and the homesteads which came up would also had completely transformed the landscape. Like for example, there is a ecological fragile land act which says that if a homestead area which is very near to a forest becomes becomes a forest and the presence of wild animals are found there, the forest department can seize the land. So there are many people who have just lost their land because of that. So what happens is that because of this law, whoever owns the land, what they immediately do is to cut all the trees over there to make sure that it doesn't look like a forest. So this law, however, also had its own impact. People doesn't grow trees over there. They always want to make it clear. So these activities, when trees are gone, what happens is that the roots are not taken out. The roots are still in the soil. So when they disintegrate, water enters deep into the soil through the space provided by the disintegrating roots, and it leads to what a phenomenon called as soil piping. So soil gradually pipes down. So you can see a hillock over there. Maybe a hill will be there, but inside that it will be completely pores, through which the water is running down. And when there's a heavy rain, the entire thing collapses. So Kerala had been witnessing many types of scenarios like this. There have been situations where the river, the well, the wells in houses, they just go down. Uh, just yesterday, we had a scenario where a two-storied house just immersed into the soil down. Luckily, the people jumped out and escaped. So the entire terrain is getting destabilized because of all these activities. A few things which has to be done immediately. The first thing is to bring the entire coring activities into the public sector. Currently, it is happening in the private sector. And there's absolutely no logic because a rock and soil it's a public resource. It is not the property of any particular person. And what happens is that people go buy land and then they start removing the soil first, and then they crack the rocks there and they take it up, and the whole profit goes to an individual or a few individuals, and they become immensely rich. There's an interesting case scenario from Goa. The person who was leading this a fight against the mining in Goa, Mr. Claude Alvarez, he once told me, if the money gained out of mining in Goa was distributed amidst the people of Goa, they would have been the richest people on the planet. So that's a scenario. It goes to a few pockets. It is not distributed. Uh, and it is important that the government takes care. And the quarrying activity, mining activity, entire things has to be taken up by the government. And the government should take the responsibility of giving whatever people need to construct houses, things like that. So that will immediately bring in a social audit of the whole process. Currently, it is just like their own terrain. They can do whatever they feel like doing, and the rules are being followed. Uh, there's a huge danger coming up, and there's nobody to monitor. So the calling has to be shifted over to the government sector. The second thing is that the rules which prevent people from uh, planting trees or maintaining them has to be removed. The government should encourage people to have a healthy homestead with a multiple layers of trees, plants, and all. The agroforestry system has to be introduced to make sure that the land is much more stable rather than any single crop. And a large amount of exotic plantations and also native plantations are very low productive areas. So the low productive monoculture plantations have to be identified, and it has been converted into natural forests. And also, when you construct a road or any other linear intrusions, it has to go by the textbook. There are particular ways in which roads has to be made on a hilly terrain. It will be costly, but that has to be done so as to make sure that the landscape doesn't collapse. So these are some of the immediate things the government should do. As I told you earlier, the whole of state is a slanting state. It is on a slope. So what happens is that the whatever rainfall falls on the ground, it is immediately flows to the sea. So that is a movement of water from the east to the west. But the scenario in Kerala is that we have the railway line, the national highways, the roads, everything running south to north. So it is perpendicular. The water flows this way, and we have the roads this way. So it just crosses. And wherever you have the road, the sides will be lifted up, and there will be a large number of houses coming over. So what is needed is to ensure that the water flow is happening. When you're making a road, there should be enough space for the water to move down below, or else it is going to create big trouble. And also the dam management. The dams have to be. There's a large set of dams here, so whatever which has crossed its lifespan has to be decommissioned, and the others, the water has to be maintained very carefully so that opening the dams doesn't create floods in the area. It is not the highways which are in trouble in Kerala. The entire space is under a problem. The seashore, we have a large number of issues we are facing in the seashore. Uh, at some places, the sea is taking up land, and at some other places, the sea is putting back land. Both are happening. And there's a lot of construction happening along the seashore. In the Midland, also a large number of quarries are operated, and that is creating big disturbance in the Midland. And the highland, as I told you earlier, the changes in the vegetation type has created big problem. Roads have created a big problem, and large amount of constructions happening. So entire Kerala needs a thorough relook. Uh, we need to evolve strategies, not just in the high ranges, but in all entire area of Kerala.